Laugavegur trail was stunning. On the first day we stayed in the huts where the bus dropped us off. It ended up being a lovely place. There was a hot spring and a few old school buses put together to make a shop. We walked around the lava fields and learnt about the volcanoes which are still active in Iceland. On the second day, our first walking day, we walked to the hut where we meant to stay at originally and had lunch. We hiked another 12 kilometres for a 25-kilometre total to get to the huts where we were staying that night. The evening was spent reading tarot cards, swapping stories and drinking Tito's, which is an American vodka. On day 3 we hiked 15 kilometres. The scenery was like walking on the moon. It was extremely barren and remote, and in fact we didn't see any wildlife till day 4. The hut lacked lights, so we used our headlamps as lamps and chatted over a few glasses of whiskey. We discussed baby names and cultures as one couple, Johan and Anita, are having a baby boy in February. I ended the night by playing Uno and winning the final match.
End of the Laugavegur trail. The hike was pleasant and the view stunning. I was sad to say bye to the people who were only walking for 4 days, as I'd mainly bonded with them. However, I'd promised Caroline and Pascal to have drinks with them whenever I returned to Reykjavik at the end of our hike. Instead of going to the pub, I stayed at the hut with Papa, Olga, Kim and Mark. We washed up and chatted a bit. In the evening, me and Papa played Jenga.
It's just
Hi everybody! Hi! Live in the view.
Bon appétit! Bon appétit!
The morning started by helping to make porridge. We fried the apples in butter, brown sugar and cinnamon and added them to the oats. As it's the end of the season and the footbridges have been removed, we were unable to visit the Femmafordhuhals. Instead, we hiked a circular trail around the huts. I can tell I've been hiking for 4 days because my legs feel like jelly. We ended up walking just over 10 kilometres and are spending the rest of the afternoon chilling before a big lamb dinner. In the evening, we sang songs with the Icelandic group staying in the same hut. We each sang songs in our native languages, so Dutch, English, American, Philippines, Indian, Russian, Polish and Icelandic. We ended the night with Bohemian Rhapsody before bed. For breakfast, we had a huge fry-up to celebrate it being the last day. We used yesterday's leftover lamb and potatoes, along with bacon, eggs, and pancakes, cooked by me and Papa, of course. The rest of the group went for one last hike, but I decided to stay at the hut and rest my knee. We ran to Reykjavik by jeep. The car had wheels which could be inflated and deflated based on the terrain to help it cross the rivers and rocky landscape. Along the way, we crossed about 10 rivers and saw a spot where Game of Thrones was filmed. After a hot shower at the hotel, we met with Caroline for dinner and some wine. We chatted about the trip and her life plans over the meal and ice cream after. It was really nice to see her again and I hope we can keep in touch.
Kommer med upp. Trupplar hela... Han är med alltid på. There was a bee in his face. Just to make it a little bit harder, right?
Day 7 started early as we had to leave in time to get the rental car for the week. The first stop was getting the car from the airport, after which we headed to the Fontana Hot Springs. There we began by learning how they bake bread using the geothermal heat. The bread needs 24 hours to cook through, and thus we dug out yesterday's bread and buried our own. The hot bread was then cooled by being dipped in the lake. Afterwards we got to try it, or my dad did because I can't have gluten. They also served homemade butter and smoked trout caught in the lake. We also went swimming in the hot springs and to cool down at a very, very quick dip in the lake. We then drove to the Eon Adventure Hotel, which was very cool. There was a large bar area where we got to sit for the evening and chill out. Today we travelled east to Vik. I had planned lots of stops along the way and managed to visit most of them. The first stop was Ulridafoss, a large waterfall. Unfortunately, we didn't stay long due to heavy rain and strong winds. Afterwards, we visited the caves of Hela. In total, there are 12 caves, but we were only allowed to visit 4 of them. It is unknown who made them or when. All that is known is that for years, farmers have used the caves to house livestock, hay, and other items. It is thought that the caves are made by Irish monks, the pre-Viking settlers, as there are a cross on one of the cave walls, and Vikings are not known to have any cave culture. Next, we drove for about an hour before stopping at the next waterfall. This is one of the largest in Iceland, and we were able to walk behind it. We hiked a bit further and were able to see another more secret waterfall. We also got some Icelandic wool jumpers for Mum and myself. Unfortunately, due to terrible weather, we ended up stranded in a cafe for a few hours, as the road was blocked due to dangerous driving conditions. In fact, we saw a camper van that had been blown over by the wind and was now lying on its side of the road. We ended today's drive with one more waterfall before checking into the hotel and settling down for the evening. Day 9's task was to drive to Hoffen. Our first stop on the trip was the Black Beach. The sand is completely black and there are basalt columns along the side, which makes for stunning photos. It was quite windy, creating huge waves, which Papa actually got caught in twice. Next, I headed back to the hotel for my job interview. We then began the 2.5-hour drive to the next hostel. On the way, we stopped at a canyon, a large waterfall, and hiked up close to a glacier. By the time we were close to the hostel, the sun was setting. This allowed us to see some gorgeous views of the Glacier Lagoon and Black Diamond Beach, probably one of the best sunsets I've ever witnessed. It was just absolutely stunning. I'm so grateful I got to witness this, especially with my dad on a trip like this. Day 10. Today we went kayaking on the Glacier Lagoon. It was as exciting as it sounds, also as cool as it sounds. There were several seals which popped up around our boats at various times. We were on the water for about an hour and kayaked around the ice rocks, learning about them as we went. Apparently the ice is blue when it has just tipped over in the water and stays as blue for about 0 to 5 hours in the summer. Also, the more oxygen, the bluer the ice. The glacier itself has sadly receded a lot in recent years. It used to reach about 200 meters from the shore, and now it's retreated to 8 kilometers from the shore. Although the Earth cycles do have an effect, the speed at which the ice has disappeared is due to humans and global warming. After a quick dinner of soup and herring, we headed towards Fagradalsfjall, the erupting volcano on Iceland. It took about 1.5 hours to hike to the top. Once there, we could see the hardened lava in the remaining crater. The crater was smoking still, though not currently erupting, and parts of the lava were also smoking, indicating that these parts were still hot. I could even feel the heat coming from the lava when I stood next to it. We used this heat to keep us warm while we ate an apple. When it became dark, we saw a tiny orange speck of fresh lava among the black. This means I saw flowing lava.
Want to be on the video or not?
I'm just rolling into you guys, just giving you a hard time. Keeping the best for last. There you go. Alright. And get the little smoke there.
Day 12. Come 9:30 a.m. we were in a car and headed to Snæfellsnes Peninsula. I had planned a lot of stops along the way, ranging from waterfalls to gorges to stone bridges. The first stop was a place where you could see basalt columns, kind of like the ones in Ireland. It was terribly cold and windy, so we didn't stay long. Next, we visited a smaller waterfall where we also had lunch. Due to the direction of the sun and the spray of the waterfall seemed to display a rainbow flag, very fitting considering it's Pride in Birmingham right now. We then drove to and climbed up a little gorge. At the gorge, you're able to slip into the crack and see some running water and large boulders. It's much prettier than it sounds. A coffee stop was needed after the busy morning, so we headed to Arnastopi, where we had a hot drink and then saw the stone bridge. My dad actually got some nice photos of me on the bridge, something that doesn't happen very often. We headed to our next stop, a crater. Despite harsh winds and rain, we climbed to the top and looked into the crater. The final stop of our journey was a collection of murals in an unassuming village. The murals contained pictures of animals, people, and abstract art. My favourites were a mural of a sheep and some short Icelandic stories. Tonight we are sleeping in a very cool hostel. It's an old fish factory which has been repurposed into a hostel, bar and theatre. Today we experience what my dad calls drive-by tourism, as in you drive by the spot you want to visit and take photos rather than getting out of the car. We did this with the first waterfall, however the second required us to get out of the car and walk down a small hill for us to see. It's a famous landmark with a funnily shaped mountain behind it, so it's definitely worth it. My favourite stop of the day was the Shark Museum. They explained that the Greenland shark can live for up to 400 years and that the sharks used for today's hackerel is only bycatch from commercial fishing ships. The fermented shark actually didn't taste too bad. There was a slight aftertaste of ammonia, but nothing terrible. It was fun to experience and help keep the tradition alive. Along the drive to the last hotel, we encountered our last waterfall of the trip. In the evening, we visited the Blue Lagoon, where I did a silica face mask and we both enjoyed a drink. At night, we tried to see the northern lights, as the scale gave us a chance of 5 out of 9. However, we weren't lucky enough to see them this time. Just means we have a reason to come back again.